Hi there, welcome again. Welcome to episode number 7 of the Microsoft Partner Quick Bytes. Allow me to thank our sponsors, which are Ingram Micro, SmartWorks, TD SYNNEX, also Aero, Copaco and Clear Media. Thank you very much for making this possible. Another message that I want to convey, please click the button here below, the subscribe button, so that you don't miss out on any next session that we will be recording. Actually, we'll be recording at least another 44 sessions that you will want to watch in order to make yourself successful, helping customers, making customers successful. So welcome. Now, the topic of the day of the Quick Bytes number 7 is the CSP Incentives, the Cloud Solution Partner Incentives. A lot has changed in that regard, and in this session, in this recording, you'll see a nice overview of everything you will want to know, what has changed and what is important for you to not leaving money on the table. So you learn on how not to leave money on the table thanks to the fiscal year 26 Cloud Solution Partner Incentives. So let's get started. Here you see an overview of everything that we will be covering, a lot of stuff. I'll start with the key downloads. The key downloads, it's quite simple. I'm sharing with you in one screen all the downloads, all the links that you will want to bookmark, especially the very first one. Let me zoom in on that one specifically because actually everything is there. All the other links are certainly also very interesting, but I think if there is only one link, go for this one. If you go to that link, you will end up on the Microsoft Partner Portal. More specifically, you will end up in a collection of assets, of resources, of the Microsoft Commerce Incentive resources. If you go to that page, what you will find is many resources, but let me pick 3 of them. Let me start with the first one, the CSP Incentive Walking Deck. And actually the whole presentation, the whole session is actually based on the walking deck. So if there is one thing that you will want to download as a walking deck, as a resource that you will want to use as a lookup resource with lots of information, then you will want to download the Incentive Walking Deck. The other thing that you will want to download most importantly and most probably every month is the updated Microsoft Commercial Partner Incentive Guide. Also during this recording you'll see some screenshots of what is in that incentive guide based on the release of September. So I think these 2 without any doubt are the most important resources to download. The other resource that is not that well known is this one. It's a Microsoft Commerce Incentive Product Addendum. It's actually an Excel sheet showing you all the products and showing you exactly which products, most importantly in this fiscal year, are eligible for the growth incentive. And the growth incentive clearly is the biggest change for fiscal year 26. And it's very important for you to know what Microsoft defines as being the key, the most strategic products, because the more you sell the most strategic products, the more incentives you will be able to get from Microsoft. So make sure that you download that Excel file and make sure that you learn to navigate and filter actually in that Excel file. Well, that's quite simple. So get it, download it, and maybe also check the other links that you see here, which are most probably of your interest. Now, that being said, let's go a little bit deeper on the levers, on the CSP Lever Construct. What exactly did change? What is it all about? Now, as a reminder, it's all about rewarding you. It's about rewarding more than ever growth through expanding existing relationship and new customers. Now, I should have said, if I would have created this slide, I would say rewarding growth through new customer acquisitions and expanding existing relationship. Because as you will learn, as part of this session, as part of this presentation, the big change is that Microsoft will reward more than ever growth within existing accounts, not just new accounts, but the growth within existing accounts. Now, as an overview, this is the basic story. First of all, at the high level, what you see there are the 3 cloud solution areas, or the 3 solution areas, which were covered in the last 4 quick bites. So if you don't know what the security cloud solution area is about, or you don't know what the cloud and AI platforms solution area is all about, watch the previous quick bites. Now what you will see, first of all, is that whatever service you sell, whatever service is involved, there is always a core incentive, and that is not changing, as you will see. The core incentive is still there. There are some little changes. I will show you them in a minute. But on top of that, you also have what they call the strategic accelerators. And the first thing that you might see is that you have strategic accelerators related to security services and products, to AI business solutions, so related to Microsoft 365 and of course Dynamics 365, but you don't have any more. You don't have any more a strategic accelerator for strategic workloads in Azure. That's certainly one of the big changes that you will want to know about, and I'll go deeper on that in what follows. The most important message is that for all of the solution areas, for all of the services, Dynamics 365, Azure related services, Microsoft 365 related services, security related services, there is now this new growth incentive. There is this new growth accelerator, and not just for new customers, but more importantly for growth within existing accounts. So that is the big level, the high level overview that you will want to remember, and let's go deeper on it in a moment. First of all, let's go a little bit deeper on what has changed from the eligibility perspective, because also there is something very interesting, very nice. First of all, I'm zooming in here on indirect reseller. So most of us, we are indirect resellers. We are resellers actually. And as a reseller, typically we will aim for a solution partner designation. And that's not new. I've been covering that topic already many times. Going for a solutions partner designation comes with a lot of advantages. Now, what is changing here? In the past, you always did need a solutions partner designation in order to be eligible to claim incentives. That is changing actually. Now what you will see, and I have a very nice slide on that will follow, you just need at least a minimum of 25 capacity points for the specific solution area incentive. I'll explain that in a minute. That's a very important change that you will want to understand. What you see here, first of all, at the top you see again the 3 solution areas, and then per solution area you see actually, like, first of all, Dynamics, the business applications. Then you see the 3 sub-solution areas, you could call them, data and AI, digital and app innovation, and of course infrastructure. And then you see the one related to Microsoft 365 and security. Now the point of this slide is very simple. Once more, in order to attain a solution partner designation, you typically need to have 70 points in total on each of the categories: performance, skilling, and customer success. And at least you need points in every one, but the total needs to be 70%. So it's up to you how you earn them. Now the point is here, even if you don't have the 70 points, you can go for the 25 points, and the 25 points is enough to claim the incentives. Keep that in mind. That's a very, very important point that I will clarify even more when I give you examples. Now let's go a little bit deeper and have a look to how that translates to Microsoft 365, to Dynamics 365 and Azure. First of all, once more, from a high-level perspective, CSP incentives are all about rewarding you to drive customer adoption. And that's certainly why, as you will see, the growth one has become so important. I've made a mistake on my slide. customer growth needs to be growth, of course. Driving customer adoption is not just about finding new customers, it's most importantly about making sure that existing customers use the platform more, adopt the platform more than before. So what you see here again, there are 3 levels of rewards, 3 levels of incentives. There are the core incentives. I've started to use the coloring here because I will be reusing the coloring in all my next slides. So there is always the base foundational level of core rates. Then there are the strategic accelerators. Remember, it exists for Dynamics, it exists for security, it exists for Dynamics 365, but it doesn't exist anymore for Azure. Keep that in mind, we'll come back on that. And then you have the customer growth, not grown, the customer growth incentive, which is about finding new customers, just like before, but it's more and more about finding new workloads, having the customer adopt the platform more with new workloads, and about seat expansion. At the end of the day, it's about revenue, about revenue growth. What you see here below, and I will clarify that also with a very nice slide to make it very illustrative, is that the changes, that's another very important change, the new rates come into effect since the first month of this fiscal year, which was July. Even while it came into effect on July the 1st, for the first 3 months, July, August and September, we will still be rewarded based on the fiscal 25 rates. But later in the year, as you will see in Q3, in January, you will get compensated for the difference in reward that you would typically get if you would immediately got paid by the fiscal 26 rates. But I will explain that in a very nice slide in a moment. So what does that mean? Growth. What do we mean exactly with growth? Well, first of all, it's about the year-to-year billing that is being compared. So Microsoft will constantly look back over a period of 12 months and compare the current month with the month a year ago and see whether there was growth. That's the first thing Microsoft will do. Check the growth per customer, because that's actually the second point. It's not per partner, it's not per reseller. So Microsoft will be checking that per tenant. So each tenant, each customer will be checked independently, and each customer will have a growth figure. And the growth figure of one customer will not impact the growth figure of another customer. So you might have one customer that is growing a lot, and then 5 customers which are declining. Well, still you will receive growth incentives for that one customer, even when let's say the sum of the 6 customers would be lower. And that's certainly also interesting to remember. The other thing that you will learn is that the calculation will be done per solution area. A little bit special there. Okay, there are actually 3 solution areas. Security is one of them. Microsoft 365 and Dynamics together is another one. And everything related to Azure is yet another one. But what you will see in the incentive guide is that still the Microsoft 365 related stuff and the security related stuff are being rewarded based on one table. They are security and modern work is seen as one thing. So you will see in the incentive guide actually 3 tables of incentives, one for Microsoft 365, which includes security, one for Dynamics and one for Azure. It would have been more logical to have also there a nice alignment with the solution areas, but I guess that will be something for fiscal year 27, but that's good to understand. It might be confusing if you see it for the first time, but if you know the history, you understand it. And a very other important thing is, in the context of Microsoft 365, which includes in this case security, only the strategic products count for growth. So you might realize growth with the customer, but you didn't do that to the strategic products. Well, in that case, you will not receive a growth incentive. I will explain later what the strategic products are in the context of Microsoft 365. In the case of Dynamics and Azure, there is not something like a strategic product. Well, there is for Dynamics, as you will see, but the point is for growth, from the growth perspective, Microsoft will only look to, for Microsoft 365, to specific products, and in the context of Dynamics 365 and Azure, all the products contribute to the growth. That's also interesting to know. Okay, let's make that a little bit more clear. Let's start with Microsoft 365. So for Microsoft 365, if you download the incentive guide, you saw the link before, you'll see actually this page, which once more explains that there are actually two options. So you can have the designation, the partner designation, or you can have 24 points for modern work or security. That's an interesting one. If you have them for security, you will be able to claim also incentives related to modern work. That's another very interesting thing to see. Now, in an overview, you will see this. You will see the core. You'll see the strategic product accelerator. So Business Premium is a strategic accelerator for which you will get 3%. And Belgium, for instance, is part of Innovate and Balance countries, so we get a 3%. If you talk about Copilot licenses, or we talk about E5, you could even get a 7%. And then the new one, the Growth Accelerator, which I will explain even better in what follows, is 7.5%. To better understand that, it's always nice to compare how it looked like in fiscal 25 and how it looks like in fiscal 26. So if you compare fiscal 25 with 26, what you will see, first of all, the core incentive is unchanged. So there's no change there. So you always get the same 3.75%. But then, if you have a look to the strategic product accelerator, more specifically for tier 1, there you see something that might disappoint you, but that's the reality, is that it goes from 5% to 3%. So Business Premium is not anymore contributing to 5%, but will only give you an incentive of 3%. That's a decline. That's good to know, I guess. However, adding Copilot to an existing customer or finding a new customer with Copilot always contributes to strategic, as a strategic product for which you get 7%. So see, clearly for you, it becomes clear what is important. And I'm guessing, I'm not really sure, but related to E5, the E5 mini bundles for security and compliance, it's not on the slide, but I'm pretty sure that they will also contribute to the 7%. So even if you already have customers with Business Premium, because at the end of the day, most customers should already be on Business Premium, But on top of Business Premium, you will be using Purview, but on top of Business Premium, you will start to add more security features like Enter ID Premium Plan 2, for instance, which is part of the mini bundle for security, and that one will most probably also contribute for the 7%. Once more, check that Excel file I talked about, and you should be able to see that over there. And then the Growth Accelerator, that's something special. It was 15% for new customers, but that was a big challenge for a lot of us, right? We cannot constantly find new customers. We also like to focus on existing customers and see them grow. So yes, it goes from 15 to 7.5% for new customers, but for all your existing customers, you'll get 7.5%. Remember, however, and I will clarify that with some nice slides later, that this 7.5%, the growth in the context of Microsoft 365, only counts for strategic products, tier 1 or tier 2, not for growth in general. Also, that one is very nicely shown. Let me give you some examples from actually the walking deck. The first one is from year 1 to year 2, we go from Office E3 to Office E3, but we add 500 users. You say, wow, that is growth. No, this is certainly, first of all, the core lever is there, so the 3.75% is there. Office 365 is not a strategic product, so you don't get this additional tier 1 or even tier 2. There is not even tier 1 here lever. And yes, there might be growth from a revenue perspective, but because you realize the growth through a non-strategic product, you won't get a growth incentive. So that's an interesting one. Keep that in mind. However, if you have a look to this one, this is one a flat one. So we go from 1000 to 1000 E5s. Could also be from business premium to business premium. Would be the same thing because both E5 and business premium are accelerators or strategic products. E5 is of course of tier 2 and business premium is of E3. But what you see here, because you go from 1000 to 1000, you don't change anything. There is no growth, but you still get the 7% for the tier 2 product, which is E5. That is what you see. You don't get any growth because you didn't realize any growth. Now have a look to this one. You have, for instance, E5, or think you could also have been business premium. You could replace that with business premium. We go from 1000 to 1000. We don't change the number of seats, but we add actually 300 co-pilots. Now, E5 is strategic, so you get a strategic lever. Co-pilot is strategic, so you also get a strategic incentive for that. And because you realized revenue growth with a strategic product, co-pilot, you also get another 7.5%. And that is where it starts to get interesting. This is another example. You go from 1000 E5s to 500 E5s. So revenue for sure goes down. Even while you add 100 co-pilot seats, well, both the E5 seats, even the 500 and the 100 co-pilot seats will give you a strategic lever, a strategic incentive, but you didn't realize any incentive, you didn't realize any growth. Yes, you did realize revenue with co-pilot, but that didn't compensate for the decline in revenue, and that's why you won't get a growth incentive. So it's always interesting to see the examples to better understand. This is another example. If you go from enterprise agreement to CSP flat, you don't change anything clearly. With E3, which is a strategic product, yes, but it's not a strategic product that contributes to growth here. There is no growth actually, so you won't get a growth lever. Here you see another example. You go from 1000 E3 to E5. So both E3 and E5 will provide you a strategic incentive, but the E5, the E5, so you actually from E3 to E5, you will generate more revenue. And because you did generate more revenue with a strategic product, you'll get a growth incentive. So see, it's always nice to see the examples and fully understand how it works, because just reading the documentation in the walking deck might not help you. Checking the same thing for the Dynamics 365 incentives, the same story, the same figures that you see, the core, the product accelerators tier 1 and tier 2. So tier 1 is finance and supply chain, Dynamics 365, and Business Central is tier 2. Keep that in mind. That's a very important one, and Growth Accelerator. Now, what does that mean if we compare again the two fiscal years? First of all, well, the core goes down from 475 to 4, and that's certainly important to realize. Also, the strategic product accelerator, both tier 1 and tier 2 go down. So tier 1 goes to 7% and tier 2 goes to 8%. What Microsoft clearly is doing is they are using the same amount of investment towards us, the partner. They even invest more this fiscal year, but they use that extra investment money and they move investment money from strategic product accelerator to growth. So what you see there is that you don't get any more 20% for new customers, but if you realize growth with strategic, well, not in that case, no. If you realize growth in Dynamics 365, you'll get, for existing customers, you also get a 7.5%. And again, you see some examples. Don't worry, I'm not going to discuss them, but I think it's a good exercise to check your knowledge and to check your understanding by going through all these nice examples. The next one is Azure. And remember, Azure is a little bit special. Azure is always a little bit special, of course, because there is not a strategic product accelerator anymore, I should say. You still see that it is okay to have 25 points capacity score. What is interesting actually there, I'll show that in another slide later, you could actually have 25 in infrastructure, 0 in data and AI, and 0 in data and app innovation. Well, even because of that, even just because having the 25 in infrastructure, you'll be able to claim incentives for data and AI and digital app innovation. That's certainly interesting. Now again, some figures, and it's more interesting to check that, to compare that between the two fiscal years. So first of all, the core did change from 4 to 3%, yeah? For reservations, you did get 10%, and for saving plan, you get 10%. That one also goes to 3%, so it goes down. A little bit disappointing probably is that we discontinued the workload accelerators, and there were a lot of workload accelerators. These were discontinued. However, all workloads, all Azure workloads, not just a list of strategic workloads, and that is a change, but all Azure workloads can contribute to growth. Not just at net new customers, but most importantly for existing customers. So if you have existing customers and you realize growth, revenue growth, with whatever workload, product, service from Azure, you'll get the 7.5%. So clearly, that's where the win is. That's where clearly Microsoft is putting the focus on. And at the end of the day, you will most probably earn more money than last year if you focus on growth in general, not just on some strategic workloads, even while the strategic workloads most probably are still the most interesting one to focus on. Voilà. And again, I'm not going to discuss it. It's actually a very simple story. There are only two levers. There is the core incentives and there is the growth incentive. And in the first example, there is no change, so you don't realize growth. In the other examples, you did realize growth by adding services, existing customers, new customers, and you'll actually get an incentive for that growth. Well, the last but one is a decrease, of course. If you decrease, you won't get an incentive. Voila. The timeline, because it was a little bit interesting also, the message I gave you that for the first 3 months of this fiscal year, July, August and September, you will get incentivized based on the new rates. However, we will start by giving you incentives based on the fiscal 25 rates, and we will then compensate for that in Q3, well, Microsoft Q3, Q1 calendar year in January. Let me explain that with this very nice build-up slide. Now, I will build it up. So first of all, what you see here, what I said, for everything that you start to realize in July, August and September, you will get paid based on, well, you will get paid based on the fiscal 25 rates. Yeah? And we will compensate for that later, but the point is you will get paid for that. What does that mean? That in September, so always 2 months later, you will get rewarded for whatever you realized based on the fiscal 25 rates in July. In August, you did also, but it shows here, first of all, starting in October, things change. And starting October, everything that you start to realize, growth, selling strategic products and so on, there we will immediately use the fiscal 26 rates. But okay, we start with September. We are in September now. And next month, we will get incentivized, rewarded for the things we realized in August, still based on the old rates. Yeah? The same thing goes for next month. In November, we will get paid for the things we realized this month. Yeah? And okay, remember, that's a pity because we promise you that at the end of the day, you will get compensated for the revenue you missed, the incentives you missed, because we were still applying the old rates. So July, September earnings paid monthly with fiscal 25 construct. And later we will compensate for that. Now, then it becomes really interesting. Starting in December, well, you don't get anything. You will get rewarded for what you did do in December, later in January, as you will see. However, there it is. In January, you will get compensating for whatever you realized in October and November and immediately get paid on the new fiscal 26 rates. And then in February, there is a combination. There is, first of all, a recalculation, so we'll get a compensation for everything you didn't receive in July, August, and September because you were paid based on the fiscal 25 rates, while we promised that you will get paid based on the 26 rates. So that gets compensated here. And also in that month, in February, you'll get paid for whatever you realized in December. See? And that's how it goes. It might look a little bit complicated, and it is, let's be honest. I have had my difficulties myself to understand it, and it helped me a lot to do what I actually did here to make it a build slide. Of course, at some point in time, it becomes easy. Starting in March, it's always the same thing. You'll get rewarded for what you realized, not last month, but the month before that. And we will also always use the rates of fiscal 26. So it's a simple story, but there is this transition. And for some reasons, Microsoft is doing it like this. Whew. Now, we have actually discussed almost everything, but let me add some other stuff. First of all, the resources, the download links, you saw them, but this one was not on my first download link page. I absolutely recommend to go to that page too. And every month or something, there is this office hour by the MCI team. And they typically do one for security, they typically do one for AI and cloud platforms, and they typically do one for AI business solutions, where they have like updates on MCI. But most importantly, it's an open session, a team session where you can ask your questions and learn also from the answers that they give to questions from other partners. So that's certainly something I recommend. Now, if you check actually the walking deck, there is an addendum. And in the addendum, they come with a lot of examples and frequently asked questions. I'm not going to go over all these examples, but it's really interesting to read about them. I'm just picking some of them. This one, for instance, which CSP incentives are impacted? Well, clearly everything. Dynamics, modern work, security, Azure, everything. But remember what I said, and that's a little bit strange. Everything related to Microsoft 365 and security, while they are at this moment in two separate cloud solution areas, they are being rewarded based on the Microsoft 365 new commerce CSP incentive. So if you download the CSP incentives guide, you'll see actually three big sections. You see the Microsoft 365 new commerce CSP incentive, you see the Dynamics 365 commerce incentive, and you see the Azure one. Well, everything related to security and Microsoft 365 is in this Microsoft 365 new commerce, and Dynamics stays in Dynamics. In the future, I'm guessing that they will change that a little bit and more make it more aligned, of course, to how Microsoft talks about the cloud solution areas. And the other thing that is important, and I have a nice example of that in my next slide, I guess, is where you also can ask, well, okay, but how does it map to the incentives, to the solution partner designation? And there also what you see, the Microsoft 365 new commerce, remember, that is related to security and to Microsoft 365. These incentives, you can claim them if you have a partner designation in modern work, Microsoft 365, or security. What does it mean? If you have one for security, you can also claim modern work incentives. If you have one for security, now if you have a modern work designation, you can claim all incentives for Microsoft 365. That's the point I want to make here. For Dynamics, it's simple. It's Dynamics. And for Azure, also the same thing. And that's probably the most important thing. In Azure, you might, and have a slide on the next one, I think, you can have, for instance, the 25 points for, let's say, data and AI, and you have 0 points for infrastructure, and a bit strange, of course, and 0 for digital and app innovation. Well, then still, because of the current rules, you'll be able to claim incentives for also workloads related to infrastructure, for instance, or in this example I gave, for digital and app innovation. And then you see all kinds of examples, and this one is I will show two examples. The first one is an example where we have actually in the first, well, imagine that we are October now, and what the system always does, it checks the October month, and then it checks the previous 5 months. And then it checks in these 6 months where you achieved at least 25 points in at least one of the months. In this case, in October, for this customer, for modern work, you have even 4 months, May, June, July and August, so you are able to claim. Now, 1 month later, imagine that we also have for November, we didn't realize the 25 points for November as for October, but then still, because you have still June, July and August, you realize 25 points, you can claim the incentives. The same thing for December. And then it becomes interesting. Even in January, you will be able to claim the incentives simply because you had 25 points in August. And that is enough. But what happens now, if you didn't take any effort to gain more points in February, and there was not one single month in the last 6 months where you realized 24 points, you lose the right to claim incentives. You can make it up, of course, if then in the March month you do your efforts, finding new customers, realizing more growth and so on, and then all of a sudden, just because of this month, you'll be able to claim again incentives. See, once more, it's interesting to watch the examples. Another example, I think the last example I give, imagine you have a solution partner designation for business application for Dynamics, but in November you lose it, meaning typically you cannot claim any incentive anymore. However, in this case, you can. Why? Because the system or Microsoft checks again the last 6 months, and in this case, in all 6 months, you realized 40 points. So even if you would only have realized 25 points in November, actually, but here you even realized the 40 points in every single month. So not enough to get the designation, but enough, and that's the point here, to get actually the incentive. So once more, these are just examples, and I think you will like and that's really the last example. In this example, what you see here in October, what you see there, that only for infra, we did have the 25 points, and actually we have had them in every single month. For data and AI, and for digital and AI innovation, let me go back, we didn't have the necessary 25 points for any month. So you take, oh, that's a pity, so you will not be able to claim points for Fabric, for instance, which is data and AI. Well, you will be able. So if you are a partner active on infra and you have your 25 points at least once in the last 6 months, you will be able to claim incentives for instance, Fabric. You will be able to claim incentives actually for any workload or product or service from Azure. Remember, there's not something as a strategic product over there. So voila, it might come over a little bit complicated, but yeah, once you understand the rules and once you have read actually the walking deck, you will understand that very well. I'm not going to discuss that. There is also a section about growth accelerators, also with examples that you will want to check out. Quite interesting. Check it, read it, especially the examples here on growth, which are really, really interesting to really fully understand how you will get incentivized. Voila, this was it. Again, a big topic to cover, and most probably the last topic I will cover in well, more than 50 minutes. Every next quick bite will most probably be only 15 or 20 minutes. This is the last one which will take more time, because I find that everything related to CSP and everything related to the cloud solution area playbooks is that fundamental and needs your full attention, needs actually your investment in time, in actually unpacking the white papers, the PowerPoints, and that's actually what I did actually in the last 5, including this one, quick bites. Once more, bookmark especially the first link. Make sure it's not on the page here. Make sure that you attend the open office hours from the MCI team and also watch the recordings and download the slides over there. It's quite interesting to do so. Voila. Once more, dear Ingram, Micro, dear SmartWorks, TD Settings, also Arrow, Copaco and Clear Media, thank you very much for making this simple. And you, dear subscriber, I hope, if you're not yet a subscriber, please subscribe by clicking actually the link here below in YouTube. Voila, thank you very much and be successful with Dynamics 365, Microsoft 365, Azure, and everything related to security. Bye bye.